Now, friends, let's proceed step by step and learn how things should be done. To create any texture in Enscape, to work with textures, friends, we click on this part in the Enscape section here. Normally, this screen should not close. Let's go to our settings and see. Yes, pin. Pin is open. Interesting. From this part, from the settings section, friends, here, when I create any texture in the SketchUp section, look, now I have reset the texture. It has also been reset here. Look, as you can see, when I press the plus part, create a new texture, friends. It says under material. Look now, let's say this is a floor texture. I said floor. I pressed OK. When the floor texture arrives, it becomes active here as well. So it means I can now use a texture here. I can select the floor texture from the texture section. I will come back to this later. First, we will use the ready-made textures. Friends, look now. Normally, let my render become active. Let me close this. Look, normally, there is a color palette here. Look, Enscape Material Library. When I press the color palette box, friends, there are various textures here and favorites. If you select the texture you want, by pressing the heart button here, it adds it to the favorites section. As we go down, there is the wood section. Look, I want to select a texture for the floor from the wood section here. Or you can add the textures you use most frequently to favorites by pressing the heart button here. Now, let's say I like the texture here and want to use it on the floor, friends. After selecting, I will say Import Selection. Now let's quickly select a texture. As an example, I chose this one and added it to favorites. It came here to the favorites. I said Import Selection, and look, it adjusted it to SketchUp's own section, friends. Up to this point, I finished all of this, and now I've closed it. By double-clicking, I select this part of the surface. I took my Paint Bucket tool, in other words, my bucket, and clicked here. Look, it has appeared. I pressed ESC and exited. I went to Render. Look, my render has become active. As you can see, friends, since this texture is set, it looks quite nice, friends. To change the settings of this texture's detail, you go to the Edit section. Look, it appears as 150 by 150. If you want to reduce it when you set it to 100 by 100, look, it shrinks, as you can see, like this. It works quite efficiently and systematically, friends. As you can see, it's a process like this. 100 by 100. Right now, it's at 100%. I can change the part I want in the way I want. This is only like this when using ready-made coatings. Now, I reset the coating again. I came here. I pressed the plus part. Let's call it ground 2. Ground 2. I said, okay. Let's say I selected a color from here. Let it be a color like this. I will only use color. I selected the color and double-clicked. I entered. I took it with the paint bucket, selected the color. Look, let's go to the render, friends. Let me show you the render part. Look, my render has changed. As you can see, it's a process like this. So the process we did in SketchUp directly affects there, or you can download and use a ready-made coating. Or look, let's do another coating feature. I went to the ready-made coatings, for example. I typed tile in the search section. Settings related to tile appeared. For example, let's say a coating like this. It might not fit here, but it could fit a part of it. Maybe this part would work. But let's say we'll do it on the whole. I said Import Selection. Look, it's transferring here, showing the transfer time. Let it transfer first. It's saving right now. Here, because SketchUp's own autosave feature is enabled, it sometimes conflicts with this, friends. Look, I'm saying close. The coating has arrived here. I double-click. I dropped it here with the Paint Bucket tool, friends. It has been applied. As you can see, this is how the process works. So I can adjust the new and different coatings in this way. You saw that the brightness or darkness of the coating changes the amount of light inside, friends. When I use a dark coating, you see the amount of light changes according to whether the coating is light or dark. We have created this type of coating, friends. We will also use that part by downloading textures from outside. I will provide you with sample textures, friends. You will be able to use them as well. In the next section, we will use sample coatings. Here, we used our own ready-made coatings. We will continue using sample coatings. The coating part is important. There are some important settings in the coating, like bump and reflection. Since Enscape handles them itself, we have no issues in that regard, friends.